heavens. So, you think you're Polish? I wouldn't make my summer vacation reservations just yet. Of course, the first thing that you must do, I won't make you guess, is you got to complete your entire U.S. research. But Gail, I want the Polish genealogy stuff. But in doing the U.S. genealogy is where you're going to find the clues to where you need to look overseas. Now, catch that word. I did say overseas. I did not say Poland. Now, for a bit it may seem like I'm kind of jumping around, but I'm trying to be as cohesive and understandable as possible, so just a little leeway. So Poland has varied in size and shape over the centuries. The 10th century is when the country expansion really began. And there have been, as we all know, numerous wars with multiple countries. There's been religious conflicts between the Catholics and the Greek Orthodox, especially, between kings and the nobility, and of course, let's not forget the peasant revolts. In a way, it's amazing that Poland has survived. In 1772, 1793, and 1795, the lands of Poland were partitioned or divided between Austria, Russia, and Prussia. So Poland itself disappeared from any maps from 1795 through 1918. In 1919, Poland was reconstituted. But 1921 brought a war with Russia, whereby some of its eastern territory was lost. There have been disputes and territory adjustments with Lithuania and Czechoslovakia. And of course, 1939 brought another partition between Germany and Russia. In 1945, the German-held area reverted to Poland, but the easternmost areas remained Russian. This land now is divided between Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. The present-day boundaries of Poland were established in 1945 at the end of World War II, and there were 49 provinces. It's like our counties. And that lasted until 1999, excuse me, when the area consolidated and they went down to 16 provinces. Quite a consolidation. 49 to 16. Now, due to wars and just general fighting amongst various factors and all the different countries involved, there has been, of course, an enormous destruction of Polish records, which makes genealogy complicated and, sorry to say, in some instances, impossible. A major complication in searching for Polish ancestors is the names, excuse me, that frog likes me, the names of families and places. Now, during the periods of partition, the place names changed from Polish to German or to Russian, and then back to Polish. Also, there's a lot of place name duplication, so you need to be very careful and very precise. It's just like, I'm from Decatur. Well, if I say I'm from Decatur, am I from Decatur, Illinois? Decatur, Georgia? I mean, which Decatur am I from? Because I think in the States, I think there's like 13 Decaturs. So, you got to be careful. And to determine a specific place, you need to know the province, or the county, or the district that had jurisdiction or control over that place. Now, Polish surnames were based on place names, patronymics, meaning after a version after the father's name, matronymics, a version after the mother's, trades or occupations, maybe your physical appearance, maybe your personality, or a nickname. Throw your hands up. And yes, some Polish surnames were changed after immigration due to difficulty of pronunciation. Not all of them, but some. As Poland has long been partly staunchly Catholic, parents would ask the priest for a name. They would give one for a close occurring feast day, and most often then, when this child or the parents were asked for the date of birth, they'd give the date of the feast day of the saint. Yeah. But you have to remember that they did that for one reason, because the priest gave them that name. Now, during the times of the Prussian or the German control of the area, children were given two names. The first name was a lot of times a saint's name, and the second name was a name that they were known by, and a lot of times that's the name that you will find the records under. So if sister was Balthasar Simon, you may be looking just under Simon to find the records. Now, mandatory military, it gets interesting and convoluted. You need to know when a specific local or registry office was instituted, and for civil registrations, as before that date, vital records were kept by the church or a synagogue, whatever the denomination. Generally, records older than 100 years are in state archives while more recent ones would be in the local records office. Now, censuses were taken by controlling countries for various purposes. And if you're looking for at Polish land records, look. So lots of Polish immigrated through Hamburg. So check the records from there. They have them from 1845 through 1934. Other major ports of departure for the Polish were Bremen, but the records were destroyed due to the lack of storage space for the years 1832 to 1907. Out with the old so you can come in with the new. But I want the old. Don't forget that Antwerp, Amsterdam, and Rotterdam, but for all 8th largest ancestral group in the U.S. So, now you know everything about Polish genealogy, and it's all as clear as mud. Now, I did prepare a handout, which I have given y'all, that has some good websites that you can go to do some research. And there are some books on the second page that I utilized also and that I like and that were very helpful, that would be helpful to you also. I'm not saying that this is all, or maybe even not the best, but I'm saying that this is a good set of references to utilize, especially the websites as you're sitting at home at, in the middle of the night in your jammies with your cup of coffee or hot chocolate or other beverage of your choice.
There'd probably be another beverage of your choice, so you can look it in.
So, do I have any questions?
Have you heard of the last name of Washer? Would that be a last name given because they washed clothes?
Could be.
Okay.
Or it could be a pronunciation that was given for a name that was hard to pronounce, or the way that a lot of the crews on these ships that our ancestors crossed the oceans in were crewed by English-speaking peoples. And the English-speaking peoples, they spelled it how they thought it should be. Don't forget that a lot of our ancestors, when they got on that ship, even if they could read and write, they may not have been able to read and write English. So they didn't know what that guy was writing down.
Do you realize how wonderful the Polish cooks are? Yeah, there's a lot of recipes, in Chicago there was, and I don't think it still exists, but the Epicurean Club, which was in a bad area in Chicago, but the best Polish food we've ever had. Their pierogies, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce them right, don't again, but that's cabbage rolled up, and it's wonderful, wonderful. I knew people that were Polish, and they were wonderful cooks. And that's a shame because you never, people just don't.
Well, I decided to present Polish up here for you because when just a little peripheral knowledge, I found that there was like about 2% Polish that settled around here in Clinton. So that's why I chose Polish.
But there's a big Polish section in Chicago, isn't there?
Oh,
Like
Chicago's
that,
got
yeah.
all the
Yeah.
ethnicities,
Oh, yeah.
and
That's
you know
what I thought Polish
they're
was.
all have their enclaves, and
I had heard that there were more Polish there than there were like in Warsaw or
No,
something.
no, there's second population.
Second.
Second.
Okay, second. Yeah, okay,
At one time, I don't know if
No,
that's
it is,
still
I
true.
just checked.
okay. I heard that.
yes, Ralph.
Gail, you mentioned that Bremen and
Yeah.
Hamburg were
Yeah.
ports of departure.
Yeah.
Do you know much about the ports here in the U.S. that they arrived at?
I didn't put down the major ports that they would have arrived at, but it probably, if I had to guess, it would be like New York, Philadelphia, Boston. You know, they'd have stayed over on the East Coast primarily.
I will say, my husband is 98.9% Polish. I got it here from DNA, right? And when my dear adopted mother, Mrs. Maszewski, who was in the underground during World War II, I showed her a picture of Ralph. She looked at the picture and she said, "This man is Polish." He sure is.
Have to show you some. This showed up in your DNA. And you were told all your life that you're Hungarian.
Mm-hmm.
You think maybe I should go to Poland and check it out? Or start searching there for the Tulai last name, which is what
Well,
was
you
Hungarian?
figure, you know, Hungary, that also is another area that was controlled, I believe, by the the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and of course then that land territory would have been partitioned and absorbed, and a lot of that went to Russia. So, you know, the Austria, Russia, Poland, you kind of got to search through all of those, you know, maybe even Germany, because Germany went into, during World War II, went into Hungary. I mean, so it's kind of a broad, you know, you really gotta do your homework and delve deep into other countries to try to winnow down.
Yeah, we found a booklet an ancestor sent us, which was, I thought it was a passport or something to get around. It wasn't. It was his, he was a baker,
Uh-huh.
and he was an apprentice, and they stamped his book. Once he reaches a certain
Yeah.
level, and they keep stamping until you get to the end, and then you're
official.
You're official, and you can go out on the town and open up your own
Yeah.
shop. He didn't complete it. And it makes me wonder, you know, they had mandatory conscription. And I think he bugged out.
Well, a lot of people did, because they didn't want to go fight and die for, you know, the rulers, and you know, so yeah, a lot of them did leave the country because of that. And it wasn't just Poland, but a lot of the European countries.
Yeah. It was Austrian and Hungarian. Now, the area is now part of Romania.
Hmm. So again, you might have to look in Romania for the records, because that, you know, they may have stayed there.
I have found all kinds of DNA hits,
Yeah.
you know, for Poland and stuff going back, oh, fourth, fifth cousin. And if you've tried to do any research for fourth and fifth cousins, it's pretty damn hard because, you know, I do it for, I'm trying to join the SAR, so I know how many basically fifth great grandfathers I have that were in the Revolution.
Yeah.
7, and 2 fourth, and 2 sixths. So I'm playing around with them.
Good luck.
But it took forever to get there. So imagine doing foreigners, you know.
Well, in multiple countries too.
Yeah, that's beyond me. I don't know. I don't know who to hire or even try.
There are professional genealogists, and you could probably even go online and Google professional Polish genealogists, because or contact a Polish genealogical society and see if they have someone that they recommend in Poland. And don't forget that, you know, you're going to end up getting records that are in Polish, so you'll have to make sure that you got some way of translation on board, or use one of the translating sites like Babelfish or Google Translate. The other thing is, a lot of times foreign countries, when they want payment, they don't we can't just send them a check or our credit card. That can get kind of tricky too. And then if you say, oh, okay, well, I'll send you a self-addressed stamped envelope. Well, the thing is, they don't accept our postage stamps.
No.
So you need their stamp. So it can get...
Back in the day, you could send an IRC, but they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's called an international reply coupon.
Yeah.
You can go to the post office
Yeah.
and get it.
Yeah, so it's gotten a little more technical and difficult to accomplish, but it can be done. But those are some of the things that I would do.
You know, I have a question about
Yes, ma'am.
what experience you might have had with researchers on Ancestry, because, you know, they claim that they will, just because, you know, like computer, SHITN, SHIT out, that a lot, if you're depending on what somebody has entered in because it was an easy grab for them to think that that was really their paternal great-grandfather that put it in there. But they claim that they will actually do they will put together a journey for you that you can take through them after they've researched your ancestry. So they take you to the Scottish place or the Polish place or, you know, whatever. And so
I don't do, I'm not on Ancestry, and so I don't work through them, but I know the magazine like Family Tree, they have ads in their newspaper or on their magazine for researchers in different countries that so because you want one you want an accredited, if I'm paying, I want an accredited genealogist, you know. I really want somebody who really knows what they're doing. I don't want somebody like me that's, you know, I mean, I can do that, you know, so but I'm not accredited, so
your Polish is probably a little rusty too. Your reading of Polish is a little rusty.
like AJ pierogies.
Well, they're good. I mean, I asked you.
Goulash.
Oh, Hungarian.
Hungarian paprika. Yeah. So now you know my Polish.
May I ask, are you from Poland or no?
No, sir. No, sir. My heritage is Irish and German.
What a combination. That's interesting.
Well, and of course, I grew up thinking I was all Irish because that's all the great aunts would, you know, that what they talk about. And of course, you know, when you're knee high, you know, you don't want to hear this stuff. So I always had to go out and play then. But I got this wild hair one day, and I was sitting in Arizona, and I decided I wanted to know where in Ireland the ancestors came from. And, well, didn't take it to rude awakening. The Leonards didn't come from Ireland. They came from Germany. What as I tell my students? All it was not lost, because there's Irish on me mither's father's side and me father's mithers. Ma'am?
Is Jewish Gen still around?
Yes.
And is it still as good at locating?
Yes. Jewish Gen is a very good site, yes.
Because, I mean, if you know a location of like a village or a town, and for example, my stepfather's family came from Czechoslovakia, but the town has 3 or 4 different names.
Yep.
Bamberg is one of them. And it was hard to locate it on a map
Yes.
or in one of their divisions of,
Yeah.
and so I used Jewish Gen to locate.
Yeah, because, I mean, you referenced the different names, and you would need to try to find an old map at that time for the controlling country, and see if you can locate it on the map there under the name that, instead of being Czechoslovakian, maybe, you know, was German. And so,
And they've
yeah.
gone through up to different.
Yeah. Yeah.
The town is still located in the same place.
Oh, sure. But, you know, and it's like there could be, well, John, he could have been, you know, living in Poland his whole life. Let's say he lived to be 100 years old, okay? He could have lived in at least 3 countries and never had to leave his home. So, yep. That's what makes it wild ride. Like, you know, the Disneyland, what, that's an e-ticket? Mr. Toad's Wild Ride?
We've had a lot of trouble with my stepfather's family in finding them because his grandmother married somebody by the name of Beck, and they don't know whether he was Jewish. They're assuming that perhaps he was Jewish, but he died before they came to the United States. And they're not sure, but what he died in Austria, they cannot find a grave. And
Well, now, the one thing that's interesting about some of the, especially some of the German-controlled areas, what we're used to here is we get buried and there we are for forever. Not so with like the Germans. They reuse those, you know, they disinter the people and take down the markers, and, you know, somebody else uses it for a while, so.
Where do they put these remains?
I don't know, but, you know, they're
They used
probably
to.
pretty,
in England and Scotland, they used to disinter them and use them in medical schools.
I'll be next to Dad, thank God.
yeah, I won't be here by then, so I won't know.
You know where I'll be.
No, they used to.
Yeah?
They used
Oh,
to
sure.
do that and
Oh, sure.
And use it,
Yeah.
use the bodies for medical schools.
Yeah, grave robbers.
Well, there's a cemetery in Chicago where they got into a lot of trouble for selling the same plot about 6 times.
Yeah.
Carol, was it cheap?
Yeah.
There.
Well, and then you get into the situations, if there was an epidemic or something, then there's just mass graves, and there was no marker at all for anybody. So there's, there's a lot of reasons why there may not be a grave to find.